happening in the background? Who are these crazy people that are talking? Checking audio. All right, let's see. I'm going to have to hardwire my head. Streaming in just a moment. Yes. Technically are already, but you know, as you do. Can you hear yourself? I don't. All right. I don't know that you should. But that's a personal choice. Shouldn't be that much feedback. There, excellent. Okay. And put this back out through here. Yeah. Okay. Sounds alright. You can hear music, right? You hear that going your way? You cannot. Good. That's fine then. Good. Okay. So you're not getting a loop back. That's good. Hooray. It's so not true, but I appreciate the sentiment. I would hate for that to be the case. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My theme music. Sure. Hi, chat room. By the way, hit that like. I'll be live-ish in just one moment. You betcha. Hardwired. That's how we do it sometimes. Oh, I gotta shut my door. Hold on. Started, and then I'm gonna bring in our first guest. Let's see. Oh, right, because the other lights aren't on. That's just fun. Now I look all dark, and it's just sad. It's just kind of in its own way. It's just sad. Like, so my for whatever reason, I go away for a couple of days, and Chip just crawls around under my desk and does his best to make everything more complicated than it needs to be. And in this particular instance, the issue seems to be, I think, like a jam up in the lighting control thing. So I'll just be a ghost of my former self temporarily, unless I go. Hold on. It'll do something in a second, I hope. On it, thanks. I have Siri working in the background trying to fix stuff for me. I don't know how much she can, but you know, she'll give it the old college try.
Having trouble connecting to the internet.
Ah, see, that's what it is.
Check the home app.
Okay, yeah, all right. It makes sense to me, I gotta say. There's something wonkadicious going on here. I will say that I blame the 40,000K stock market, but I will bring in a well-lit member of the fam, our dear friend Cliff Schecter, waiting in the wings. There he is. Sorry, I'm graying you out a little bit. I will remedy that as we go. How are you, fine sir, and welcome.
I'm doing well, man. How was the show Saturday night?
It was spectacular in its own way, but it also is, you know, I have to say, one of the weirdest things about doing the shows lately, by the way, the venue was awesome. The crowd was enormous. It was lovely. Is the number of people who pay attention to this show anymore. And so it makes me even more stressed out about making it work right. Like, it was one thing when I was like, oh, I know you from that other thing and that other thing and that other thing. But increasingly people are like, the morning show, and I love the afternoon show, and also Saturdays, and the whatever. And it's great. It's a lovely, lovely thing. Don't get me wrong. But it, like, the pressure of like, it has to work, god damn it, gets stronger all the time. I have to, I mean, breaking news, as it were, I'd love to get your take on, in the last 24 hours, the death of Raisi and what's going on there. It's a rather large story, if I do say so my damn self. And it was one of the things I wanted to cover kind of straight out of the gate this morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So thoughts on that?
Well, I don't want to pull an Elon Twitter, and speculate on things like Mossad agents flying his helicopter, because I'm sure you saw that, and the minute it happened, I'm like, watch right away. It's kind of like the World Trade Center. All the Jews got a phone call to get out ahead of time, so I knew something like that was coming. In all realistic. Look, I mean, the facts are he was a hardliner. He was someone who apparently used to hold 3-minute trials before executing people that had any ties to anybody previous to the fanatical regime that he was a part of. He, engaged in the rape rooms and the rest, and may he rot in hell. I can't stand when we pretend that it's a sad thing. It's not a sad thing. They also sponsored Hamas's attack on initially on Israel, that has us in the situation we're in, with the Middle East being conflagration again. As far as I'm concerned, scum of the earth, and couldn't happen to a better guy.
Yeah,
but I do wonder,
good
how
riddance
it's
to
going
bad
affect
rubbish.
things.
Yeah.
Right. How will it affect things? Right now, is there going to be blame for this? Are we going to find out that, that somehow he found himself in the equivalent of a 5th-floor hotel room in the Moscow Hilton?
Right.
I don't know. I assume it's just a crash, but it's going to impact a lot of things. I would assume right away, particularly Iran's domestic politics, which I don't.
Right.
There could be protests, there could be violence, there could be a lot of things. So.
Yeah. Well, my mind goes immediately to the folks that benefit the most, specifically not in the generalized conspiracist abstract cabal blah 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 that we hear all the time. And in this particular case, the story has been for a while that he's the one to be, he's going to be the successor to Ali Khamenei. And so the idea was, and Khamenei's 85. I don't know that he's looking to leave anytime soon. And those guys never have a good time after they split. It's never a soft landing per se. So the idea that it was an outside job seems particularly weird in this. It has all the markings of the, I don't care if the weather sucks, hurry up and get back here. Yes. And if I tell you to fucking take off, you take off now bullshit. More so than it does Jewish space lasers, which is, I'm sure, where Marge and the rest of that clan.
A lot of people, and I think you're exactly right. It's a shame, look, man, we were talking about music earlier. You go through the list of everything from what's his name, Richie Valens to Stevie Ray Vaughan to whatever. People don't get on the plane, and they're like, no, we need to go. And then obviously we lost Paul Wellstone that way, and we lost other. I mean, it's awful, but this stuff happens, and you're right. It's usually people where somebody in a position of power is like, I don't care, we can make it through the weather, and they can't make it through the weather. So I mean, that is the most likely thing that happened here.
I have to say, I'm always amazed. And this always goes back to Cenk Uygur freaking out on the people at Southwest famously, and yelling at them that the plane isn't taking off, and this is some sort of corporate attack on his human sovereignty or some horse shit. When in reality, I gotta say, folks, if they say the plane can't take off because the crew is tired, or they aren't there yet, or the plane is broken, or the weather doesn't permit, shut the fuck up and enjoy the fact that you're safely on the ground. Because you don't fuck around with that kind of flight problems ever. And treating the staff like shit because you're in a big hurry or whatever. Look, air travel is a miracle in and of itself. You don't fuck around and find out later. You don't get into the air until you're absolutely sure.
And there may be people, behind closed doors who fucked things up scheduling wise and did stupid shit, but almost never is it the people that you're dealing with. It's like yelling at the waiter because somebody undercooked your food. It wasn't the waiter who did it, right? So you're taking your anger out on the people that didn't even do it. I'll tell you quickly, I won't get into a long story, but I once was you'd call it a mini plane crash. In Guayaquil, Ecuador. We had to fly from, through there, and then from there back to New York City, where I lived at the time. We were in Quito, in the capital, and somehow we made contact with a much smaller plane as we were on the runway, so it wasn't in the air. I don't know what happened to them, but a bunch of guys came out, soldiers, who were carrying big guns, and I was like, all right, I'm not asking any questions, and they told us to go inside the airport and wait. And it was amazing to me. A lot of people were screaming for, like, let's get back on the plane. We need to get home. I'm like, let's not.
Yeah, right. There's this.
Let's make sure the plane's.
Most people don't know this. I don't know if you, like, as a trained pilot on my way to slowly but surely to my my private license. One of the things that you listen to when you're in flight school, which is the ground school really, is you listen to recordings of planes in trouble. And one of the most famous one is in Florida, where this like guy with a decent number of hours, but a student pilot up in the air with his instructor, and the instructor dies in the seat. And the plane is on autopilot, and it is ascending towards 10,000 feet. And the people on the ground know that if they reach 10,000, it's not a pressurized cabin. So he's going to start losing his mind, because he's going to have, epoxy or whatever. He's going to be over-oxygenated, and he's going to, So anyways, it's like, you listen to this dude, and as it gets worse, they're just like, disconnect the autopilot. Trust us. It's not going to fall out of the sky. Just turn it off. And he's like, but I don't know. And you could tell they're just losing this dude. The fact that he didn't do his checklist with the guy meant that he didn't understand the things that they were saying. It was just a couple of flip switches almost killed this fucker. And in South America, the other one they have you listen to is north and south. There's like roads in the sky. North being the 25,000 feet, and southbound being the 20,000 feet. So you got a 5,000 feet difference, but and you're off by a little bit. But the idea is that we're keeping these guys separated by altitude and by slight distance. Well, there was this plane that got its numbers screwed up, this like private jet. And it was such a small, dense craft. It sliced through the wing of a passenger plane and did not disrupt the small plane. But the passenger plane, which was enormous, just tumbled out of the sky at 25,000 feet with its wings just in. And so, like, just checking that little, like, are we at 25? Is it 25 or is it 20,000? Like, those little details that are enormous.
Those are good things to know.
Yeah, right. So in this particular case. Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
Sorry.
I was just saying, in this particular case, it's clearly. It reeks of, we can get ahead of it. If you looked at, they were like, snow started to fall. The snow started to fall while they were looking, like 2 hours in, which means they were like, if we get off the ground now, we can make it before the snow comes. It's exactly what the fuck happened. Like, you can just tell, know.
And I mean, again, I think of the old, I don't know why it comes to me, but the old George Carlin line about, when he's like, all these fuckers say that I don't want any plugs in me, man. If I'm dying, let me go. And he's like, fuck that. Like, find holes in me and stick plugs in them. I want every plug you got. Well, the way
if I got a hole, plug it up, man. Right.
Yeah, if I've got a hole, put a plug in. Well, this makes me think of that, which is, the macho, like, I need to get up in the air. No, I don't. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, if there's a reason not to go up and fly, I'm not scared of flying at all. Like, I'm not. But if there's a reason not to go up there, you don't need to tell me not to go up there twice. I'm cool. I'm staying on the ground, right? Like, if you think the weather's bad enough, if there's a potential issue with the plane, I'm like, no, fuck you, we must go. I'm like, no, I'm going to chill. I think I'm going to hang out, and you guys figure this out, and then we'll go.
Right.
Kind of thing. So.
It's a very bizarre thing when you have, so many potentials for why something like this could happen, the conspiracy around it, right? Because I think most of the time, especially in authoritarian regimes, a lot of the Putin-esque kind of people in the world make a point of going, you know, they're going to blame the Jews if I do it. So if I need to get rid of somebody, right? We can kill this guy. Like the Russians do it all the time. We can kill this dude, blame it on a Ukrainian hit squad. Nobody's going to fucking check. The Ukrainians are going to deny it because they didn't do it. But the guy's still dead, and we can get a little bit of press out of it and a solid, you know, kill. Like, you know, and I would argue.
What was the dude's name? Yeah. Was it Prigozhin? I'm
forgetting.
The one
Yeah.
that ran the private military. We all saw that video of his plane flying out of the sky. I don't believe that was due to natural causes. Okay?
No.
I think that probably, just
yeah.
guessing.
I mean, and again, everybody was just fucking. It was funny that everybody was like looking at their watch, like, all right, when's this fucker gonna get killed? Because it was just a matter of time. And then he gets into a plane and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? It's like, no, they're inviting me back to Moscow to have a nice meeting. Like, no, they are
all cool.
not.
Like, I invaded some bases. I completely humiliated Putin, took over some of his bases, killed some of his men, that kind of thing. But I'm sure all is forgiven. He's a forgiven guy.
Water under the bridge.
No problems now.
Right.
Like, I do. I wonder how these guys. It's like the same way I wonder when people fall for Donald Trump's lies for the 8 billionth time, where he's like, "I have the money." You're like, "You don't have the fucking." Just stop saying it. But people fall for it, right? And it's the same thing. Like Putin, somehow these people, he's like, "No. Stay on the 5th floor. Make sure you get a balcony. It's totally cool. It's not going to happen to you." You know, and it always does. It's amazing to me. Like, you don't catch on. Yeah.
Right. It's also, I mean, I guess it's stunning to me also that, well, let's look at the size of his crowd at Wildwood as an example. So, right, the whole story was 100,000 to 80,000 to 100,000 people. Just huge.
Right.
Yeah.
Which you knew was a lie, because the first lie he ever told when it was his inauguration, you know, where he lied and said it was filled with people, and it was like 1/5 of the people who he claimed were there or less. He always lies about this shit. But
well, and that's what happened with this one. Right. This one where they're literally at 10% of the number that he actually said. The whole venue he's in holds, you know, the area that they've got roped off holds 20,000 people. It's a third full. Right. Anybody can do that math relatively quickly. We're talking 8 to 10,000 if they're just spread out through the rest of it. The front is packed, but there's chairs. It's not standing room.
And you have to remember, they're MAGA people. So they probably at least half
take up a little more space.
Pounds.
Sure.
So they're taking up a little. You know, they've got some. You know, I think Spinal Tap sang a song about the bigger the cushion. You know, in any case.
Yes, right. Big bottom. Yes, that's what he was counting on for his. The mud flaps quotient in that regard. But literally that number. You know, they checked out, like, Wildwood itself has 250,000 people that come every weekend, which means 90,000 on Friday, 90,000 on Saturday, and somewhere between 60 and 70 on Sunday, or whatever, you know, or vice versa. Like Friday is a small day because more people work or some shit. But they know that, which means he's there on one day, he's catching one slice of that crowd that's already there. The entire place, max the fuck out, is 90 to 100,000 people. So that's what they counted. Yep. Anybody, and even the mayor of Wildwood is saying, like, well, people were listening to it even if they weren't down there. So his audience was, like, people could hear it through their fucking windows.
Dude, there were people
at their
in
vacation
Margate, New Jersey.
Like, the fuck out of here.
People in Margate and Cherry Hill and, you know, in Toms River. I'm sure they could hear some echoes all the way across New Jersey. I mean, I love the one where they claimed it was, I think it was Eric who claimed it was a bigger crowd than Bruce Springsteen. I could tell you, having been to 6 or 7 Springsteen shows.
No.
Not
at all.
No.
100% no. And the other thing too is, even this is the one part that it always drags on me is this. He compares himself to other audiences. Like, well, I had a crowd as big as so and so, even at equal size, and you're like, yeah, but for free, motherfucker. Like,
right.
you know,
That's
you
a great
are
point.
like, I got news for you. Fucking like 80s hair bands that people would consider kind of in the where are they now file fill 3,000 to 5,000 seat arenas at minimum $35 to $50 a ticket.
Oh, yeah, man. Or
greets.
state fairs or stuff like that. Hell, man, I like that music. I go to those things. I think it was
too.
I was at what was it, a Skid Row, LA Guns, you know, like Faster Pussycat thing. There had to be 5,000 people there at the state fair, you know, in Ohio here, or not the state fair, but it was a fair near Columbus, Ohio. So you know what, like, and we paid to be there because I love that music, and my older son, who's a rock singer, loves that music, right? Like, Trump's free. He probably, and actually, there's some actors there, so he actually pays some people to be there.
That's right. Yeah, that was the other aspect. Is like, not only are people not paying to get in the place, and these are people who, you know, it's worth the gas money to go to a bunch of these because, like, an increasing number of his crowd, the front row Joes, has expanded to like 5 fucking rows. So they're these just like Branch Davidian fucking lunatics that follow him around, right? And it's
right, yeah. It's like the Grateful Dead for them, right? They got like the flags. Did you see that video of them playing?
Dead. They just hate America.
Exactly, that's what it should be. Did you see that there was a video that was going around that had 2 of them dancing to Rage Against the Machine?
Yes.
Killing in the name of, and not getting that, you know, some of those who work forces are the same that burn crosses applied exactly to them. Mm-hmm. You know, like, this is about you, right? Like,
yeah, but they think that's an anthem for that behavior.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
They're
probably
like,
right. Like,
yay, some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses. Cool.
We can do
right. We're allowed. Oh, God.
Fucking dummies.
It is. I gotta say, it's a joy to watch this kind of fizzle as it happens.
Yes.
And I honestly, you know, I think what used to be frustrating when he was at the sort of height of his powers in regard to his group of, you know, lunatics, it is clearly diminished both mentally and in its financial capacity as well. He is bleeding these people dry. And every time every time we turn around, it's another like grab for the same dollar. He's not expanding the tent. He's not getting new donors. He's losing, you know, even the big donors who are looking at the stock market and the investment world, and they're going, look, I need to write out one thing over the next 10 years, and it's the collapse of like corporate real estate, business real estate. As people move back home and we shift to these like, we're going to, instead of building apartment buildings, we're going to build apartment buildings with data centers in the fucking center of them where everybody can kind of WeWork an office outside their apartment is totally what they're going to be fucking building over the next little bit. It's just,
absolutely, that's
how they're going to modify things. You're not going to have like a pool rec room anymore, or they will, but it'll be like for business meetings. You know what I mean? And I mean,
look, I'm in an office that is that model right now. You know, that's the county supports entrepreneurs here, and you have your own office space, and then you've got certain shared things, printers, things like that. But like, that's, you know, and there's even some areas I pay for my own office. There's some areas that are co-working space here, like that's, you know, and that, I think you're right. I think some people are gonna start putting those into, especially people that have got money, into like buildings with apartments, maybe with condos, maybe, you know, who knows what? Because so many people are able to work outside of the office at this point. So you're right. They're going to ride that out, but also, you know, and I talked to friends of mine on Wall Street, and you know, and there are a couple of them who I've known since forever, right? High school and college and whatever. And these were people that voted for Mitt Romney, you know, and most of them the first time around with Trump were horrified, but by now they understand, like, you know, stability is how the market does well. Instability, some fucking crackpot, you know, like sitting there with his Kentucky Fried Chicken covered fingers, like, you know, typing out shit on Truth Social about how he's going to nuke China. is not good for the markets.
Right.
So I mean,
it's not good for
they get
anybody.
that. Right.
Again, it's, we deal with this instability factor in the Middle East all the time as the primary reason why oil prices go up and down. And the fact that we allow ourselves to be, I don't know. It's a combination of like naive to the reality of it, but also, yes, I know I'm badly lit. My lights are, there's a Wi-Fi problem in my house right now, but I'm not fucking with it so we can continue to have uninterrupted show. So you'll just deal with me in a kind of weird space cutout. Help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope. It's fine. You know what? I should just go ahead and do that.
The love is still there, is all I have to say.
That's right. Is the fact that let's see, I'll make myself a hologram or something. This will how about
That's
this?
awesome.
Slightly better. I'll just make myself kind of like
You're like
where's
Tom
my universe?
Cruise in, what was that movie, Vanilla Sky?
Yeah, right. Or well, I don't want to ruin it for people, but if you haven't seen Sugar, have you seen Sugar?
I haven't actually. So now
Yeah, Sugar is the new. I'll just be this. I'll be Robot Hal, and this will be the AI Hal for now.
Right.
Sugar.
Hal.
Sugar is the new
name.
Yes, Sugar is the new Colin Farrell series on Apple TV.
Is it really good? Because I need a new good one. So.
Yes, it's only a few episodes, so it's very bite-sized. But the last episode was last night, so you can binge the whole thing end to end. And it's pretty fucking spectacular. How about this? I'll just use this one as well. This is way better.
Ooh, I like that.
I don't even know what the fuck
I gotta learn how to do some of this cool shit that you know how to do. Because
it's a little weird.
I'm bare bones here, man.
This is a little much. This is a little DJ. I gotta say, I feel like a European DJ.
I gotta say.
Yeah, it is. I'm gorgeous. Thank you very much. So ultimately, I'll just leave this on here. It's too distracting. Never mind. So back to real conversation. The thing that I'm amazed by is, and this is, I think, the window by which we get the concept of renewables to rural America and to get them to understand where the more oil we rely on, the more we rely on the world markets, because we're not going to nationalize our oil. We're not Venezuela. I don't understand why the fuck they think we're going to drill, baby, drill. No, you give leases and they'll decide whether they're going to drill or not based on how much money they're going to fucking make. And if it's going to drive the price down, there's no reason for them to drill. And if it makes no sense. We don't have any control over that, nor, technically speaking, would we want it as a capitalist democratic society. It should be up to businesses how much shit they produce, and we shouldn't be able to have the government go, you will make more hamburgers right fucking now. And like, well, I don't have any beef. You will kill more cows right fucking now so they can make more hamburgers right fucking now.
Some beef. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's how you screw things up. That's how Mao murdered,
That's how people
40
start
million
disappearing off the streets. And you're like, this meat tastes different.
It does. It's chewier than usual.
Right.
And fattier. I don't know how they manage that. So ultimately, are not relying on like digital, or on like renewables, makes us reliant on this world market that can be manipulated for political purposes by other countries. If they just want to, they learned this in the 70s with Jimmy Carter. All we got to do is fuck with the price of oil, make Americans uncomfortable, and they will change leaders like fucking clockwork.
No, you're right. I mean, and think about, I hate to even do it. Think about the alternative history there. Think about the guy that, think about the guy that put having a brain moment. But, put the solar panels at the top of the White House, which
Jimmy Carter.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Think about that, about Jimmy Carter. That this is that guy. The one I was being dramatic.
Yeah,
the guy you're talking about, and the other guy gets elected and comes in as a middle finger. The first thing he does is he takes them down off the White House.
Right.
Could be, if we had elected both Jimmy Carter and Al Gore, we could be in an entirely different situation now. But you're right. To give foreign, autocratic, corrupt, nefarious regimes the kind of power they have in determining our domestic politics, that's been something we've been doing now, as you said, has been going on for fucking 50 years. We're now also handing it to them by handing their friends, their little pals, Twitter and places like that, so that
Yep.
they can influence people and turn people into fucking blockheads to do what they want. I mean, we hand them so many tools to mess with our democracy. It's insane.
Right. Yeah, it makes no sense. You would never. This is the biggest reason why you get rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and you let people serve openly who are gay and lesbians and trans in the or whatever their proclivity might be. If somebody's, I don't give a shit. I think this applies to cross dressers. If you want to go all the way back to J. Edgar Hoover, whatever it is, the reason
Worked for Klinger, right?
Right, exactly. The one thing that you want is we represent freedom, so you're going to have to deal with even the freedoms that make you uncomfortable. Get the fuck over it and just be proud of you're in the country that allows that shit and doesn't chuck people off roofs and do terrible shit. But also on top of that, you can't blackmail people if the behavior is not shameful in the country.
Exactly right.
It's a national security issue to allow gay people to serve openly, because you can't use that against them and go, let everybody know you're gay. And you're like, please, I could use the action. It has a different effect, right?
Where are the good bars here?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you could probably ask Matt Schlapp, although allegedly, what do I know?
It's not alleged. The alleged part is whether or not he technically groped the dude, and whether it's a trial, and whether it's it's beyond an HR issue and more or a criminal assault level. That's to be worked out. But there's no alleged.
In a bar, let's just say.
Right.
But I mean that you're right, because that, even when it comes to the State Department, right? People forget that McCarthy, part of his whole thing was going after. I mean, his biggest part was going after people for being communists. But he also went after people for being gay. He threatened them with outing that kind of information, even whether he had it or not, making it up. So the whole thing is that if it's no longer something you need to hide, guess what? They don't have anything on you. They're like, we're going to tell people you're gay. And you're just like, good, I tell them I'm gay. Fuck you. You know? I mean,
and that's, I think there's a value in, and again, you can go back to like McCarthyism and the ideas that like we have to out the gays because it was shameful at that time. You could manipulate them, and if they're in government, that's somebody. It's like they're in the same kind of situation as somebody who has a lot of debt. Like this person can be bent by our enemies, as it were. And so,
like Brett Kavanaugh, for example, the debt just disappears. It's amazing.
Right. It just vanishes along with whatever the receipts were for his football games or whatever the fuck he was doing.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you want to take away that leverage. Thank you, Mr. Delight. You want to take away that leverage that they might have about those people. And the same thing is true about our energy markets. And I don't understand how, like, rednecks in particular, especially Southwestern ones, are against electric vehicles when you can produce electricity with solar panels. You cannot produce gasoline. I don't care, even if you have an oil pump in your back fucking yard. Right?
No, that's exactly. I mean, it's such an easier process, right? Such a direct, easy process.
Right.
Not to mention,
and you can always recharge it. And it's fucking silent. So if you live out in the woods and you're just like, you enjoy the pleasantness of living out in the woods, the sound of like is a lot nicer than blah, 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 blah,
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And then, it's that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I was just going to say, obviously, other sources too. Wind energy. And I mean, there's so many that render oil, unnecessary if we would just embrace. I mean, we are. And let's be, I think Biden put the most money in the history of our country.
Yes.
I know he did. In the Inflation Reduction Act, huge investment in clean energy, which we don't talk about enough, and how that changes the game. So.
Yeah. Well, and I would argue that, like, in the situation where we are trying to separate ourselves from the worst actors on the planet, our first order of business, even if you were just like, we need to go to hydrogen cars or natural gas. Like, if you're in the Northeast and you're worried about electric batteries not being able to start in winter and blah blah blah, and you don't know that most electric cars when they're you plug them into your house and they have a warm up feature on them that will just get them up to start up. And you can set it to do that, like while you're making your coffee and you're ready to go out. You can warm your car up with a button, and then when you go out there, you just get in it and off you go. The fact that like that's not even brought up in the conversation where like Trump, they don't go very far and they don't go in the cold, right? And
do they also
like,
kill birds? Like
yes,
like
they give you bird cancer. They give you tumors the size of pelicans. I don't know. The other thing too is it seems like every time now when he's like they're all going to be made in China, it seems like he's talking about Teslas specifically.
Probably
that's
is.
super fucking odd.
He doesn't know. He can't discern
anything
between anything.
Yeah.
So whatever the last thing somebody told him about someplace, he's generalizing, and he seems very, very obsessed, which means somebody feeds him some stuff on water, and he's just like, oh my God, the toilets aren't flushing the way they should be. There's flushing stinks, and there's no water pressure, and you're just like, what are you so freaking obsessed with this? What's your problem, man?
Yeah, I keep going back and forth over where he gets this shit, where he has this like bizarre.
There has to be a lobby or somebody that benefits from, like, who's feeding him his crap.
What, like Phoenix real estate, where they're like water pressure's low because they're stealing water from Nevada, and they're like you can't. They're making us put all these regulators on all the faucets to slow down what's going through.
The Southwest, yes.
Golf courses. I'll tell you what it is. It's fucking investment in southwestern states and golf courses and the water pressure rules about those places and how much water you can use, and therefore, if you need to keep the greens looking good because people come and leave, then you fuck the hotel out of water pressure because that's the decision they're having to make about the availability of that. That's my guess in general.
I think you're probably right. And look, with doing that, also even wealthy homeowners who can't have the water pressure they want. So these are the people whose asses he's kissing to try to win back, suburban voters, others in Nevada and Arizona, and even in Texas, which is in play, folks. So I mean, that's what he's trying to do.
Right.
Very much.
I gotta say, like, increasingly, I am of the mind, especially after watching kind of like Trump's rallies and stuff, that if you are not wearing Trump merchandise, you are voting against him. That his voters singularly either walk around with it emblazoned on their chest and forehead, or they don't exist. And that his numbers are shrinking with the intensity of because again, I don't give a fuck how many fucking flags you have one vote.
Right. And again, we were shown this, I think last time I was on 2 weeks ago, I talked all about, I went into these various local elections and congressional ones. The polling is garbage at this point. I worked in polling for a bit. It does not work. They're reaching 2 out of every 100 people they're calling. They're not talking to all people. You can't weight the stuff enough. They have not found a new model. Online does not work. They have not found a new model that is accurate. And again, I gave all these examples back then, and I have another new one now. In the Democratic primary in Maryland, you had Also Brooks running against Trone, an African-American woman running against a rich white dude. Guess what happened? They overcounted for the rich white dude. Shocker. And they showed him winning in all of their polls leading up to it that I saw. They had him ahead. And I think the worst they had him was up by 1 point. And she won by what, 8, 9? So they're off by, 8, 9, 10 points. And by not counting women, particularly, I'm sure, single women, not counting black women, not counting blacks in general. These are all the folks they're undercounting that are actually showing up and voting. And they keep doing this.
Yeah, well, and they start picking, we were looking at this, I think, last time, too, is that they keep 20 to 30% of the New York Times' poll about likely voters were people that had never voted before, which is the exact opposite of a likely voters poll. That's the point, is that you literally, they were like, they had not either voted in the last 2 elections or ever, which is precisely the rule. The last 2 or always.
Somebody who worked at 2 firms, one on a presidential election in polling, Hal has it, not that you would doubt Hal, of course, but is 100% right. Literally the first 2 questions. Are you 18 years old and able to vote in the United States? Yes. have you voted in the last 2 elections, where you were able to vote? And if you weren't, we don't consider you a likely voter. We don't even want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the thing. Like, they're full of shit. The New York Times gets these shit polls with Siena or whatever, and they're just like, okay, so they suck, and then they give people really shitty information. But on the other side, they're clickbait, and people will click on them, and then they release them, and they insult their own polls. If you go deep into the middle of the article they write, they're like, well, we were way off on this, that, the other thing. Well, we did say 78% of the black vote was going to Donald Trump, and that might have skewed us a bit. But, but you have to dig deep into it to find that.
Yeah. Well, and also,
oh, crap.
I don't know, like, if you look at how they're, picking people, I think the word of this year in terms of polling is poll jacking. Because what you're seeing also increasingly is that Trump buys into, like, Rasmussen. Obviously, there is money being paid there because he's buying these Rasmussen polls. And here's what happens when Rasmussen does a poll in a swing state. They call all the other polling companies and they go, hey, when are you doing yours? And they go, well, we're doing it from March 15th to this or whatever. And what lists are you using? Well, we're using this list. Okay, all right, thanks. Because we don't want to overlap with you guys. And then what they do is they send out an email like, hey, you're going to get a call from a polling place or whatever. Let them know that Trump loves you and blah, and you love him and blah, blah, blah. And so it artificially inflates this. And then they have people, when they do the live, we went to an event and polled people at this particular thing on top of, whatever a non-political gathering about a particular issue, or they went to a particular diner, or they knew they were going, hey, we're going to go to this diner on this Wednesday to Sunday during the primaries.
Right.
And so don't show up and glom onto the same people. Okay, cool. Well, Rasmussen tells that to the Trump campaign, and then the Trump campaign sends 10 people down there to go, I voted for Trump, and I used to vote for Biden, but I would never vote for another Democrat in my life. Right. And it's all because of the economy and inflation. And then they look up this person and they go, interestingly enough, we couldn't find, we put them in our likely voter cycle or whatever, but we couldn't find any evidence of them voting in the last couple of cycles. I'm like, motherfucker, because that's a fake name, because they don't live there. It's poll jacking. That's what they're doing.
We only found one real person in there. His name is Lawrence Taylor, and he's on crack.
Yes, right. And then there's it's kind of the equivalent of like Twitter polling where you're like, yes, as American living in central Ohio, as fourth generation, yes, we are believing in the Trump.
Of borscht. Would you, after healthy portion of borscht, still vote for,
yes,
that kind of,
always.
Did you see,
eat borscht, vote Trump. That's what our household do. It is American pastime, like baseball and borscht eating. And
you see? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, finish. Yeah.
I just was going to say, I'm trying to look for it now quickly on Twitter if I can't find it, because it was hilarious. Like, they just let their freak flag fly the other day. Like, Rasmussen, at least for the longest time, has like tried to pretend that they're, we're really objective and we don't. But the other day, they came out with this sort of, they responded to somebody about, oh, well, if you're stealing votes in the middle of the night and stuffing them in your, whatever, then of course, you'll get the results you want. I was like, you guys do realize this is public and we can see it, right?
Right.
And like, you do realize you're still pretending theoretically to be an objective polling firm, right? And I mean, they just gave up. I think at this point, I may not be able to find it during this, but I'll send it to you, like, to share with people if you want, because I mean, I was shocked that they just sort of were like, all right, we're just going to let you know, we're entirely full of shit. We are a propaganda operation. That's all we do, and we're just throwing it out there.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to me that when I don't know, like the last fucking 5 elections, the polls have been so like brutally off that anybody dives in, that anybody, goes, oh, the polls are leaning this way, the polls are leaning that way. I mean, I guess it works in the horse race of it, and there is no impetus to get it right. The weird thing is because we live in the age of clickbait, there is no reason why you would want correct polls that pay off, except for, I guess getting Americans to subscribe regularly because they trust your paper. What a fucking crazy idea. That's obviously
They're not going
lunacy.
to that anymore. It's the ad revenue, and and
Right.
they somehow think at these newspapers they're going to get Trumpers to read them or something, or I don't know. Like, it reminds me of everything these cable news stations have tried, like Chris Licht at CNN. Really, we'll get Trump people to watch us. And you're just like, are you fucking stupid? Like,
Right.
I mean, yes,
Yeah.
they're going to leave OAN, and then they're going to leave Newsmax, and then they're going to leave Fox, and they're going to come on over to you. That's where they're
Right.
going to go.
Well, the same thing goes with like all the legal experts or whatever. Right now, you have a bunch of like Fox legal analysts who are literally writing their op-eds, trying to get Trump to read them out loud as like an ad. So if you can get him to it's a score. It's a way you check off it'll guarantee you readership if he walks out there with his stupid fucking list of your shit and reads your name and one of your quotes out loud. So they're all gearing what they're saying towards, a quick soundbite that he can actually sell.
Right. It's all grift circus. Everything is about
crazy.
Can I get on the gravy train, the right-wing speaker trail, where I get paid to go to these stupid conferences filled with mouth breathers? Can I sell the dumbest merch you could ever think of?
Right.
Can I do a rap song like Ben Shapiro? It's. I'm sorry I even mentioned that. That may have given people some
Yes.
sort of a little vomit in their mouth. If they listen.
We should have a gag rule. Gag rule. That violates the gag rule. Cliff?
Can we gag him? Can we get a gag order against him? That would be great.
You mean against Shapiro or?
Yeah,
I guess
that he can't rap. We can't rap anymore, or he gets arrested.
I gotta say, I don't. First of all, that was I'm pretty sure that was AI. Was the point? Was that they created an AI rap using his voice? Was the thing because
was it? Because I thought he actually got up with that right-wing white nationalist rapper.
No, the dude who's like Trump's illegitimate child. Right, the guy with the lip tattoos and the weird beard.
Grill.
That's always
the face tattoo and the grill.
Who's like showing how gangster Trump is and like I
the
don't
guy
know.
that
That dude
looked like meth in human form. Is what he looked like.
He's gonna be rapping a jingle for like diabetes medication, or some like workaround. You don't need diabetes meds. You can just go to Club Med. We'll just hang out and get your injection on. And then just
he shows you his arm, and there's all the tracks on there.
Right. Oh God. Yeah. Forgato blow. Yeah. Forgot to blow. He always. Yeah. Whatever his fucking name is. Who calls himself Trump's like illegitimate son, which is such a weird thing considering what's going on in the trial right now.
About the relationship with Trump. Even these guys like running down there to stand out in front of the prison or the court. Should be a prison.
It's a difference, yeah.
Stand in front of the court and just be like, attacking the judge, whatever the guy says. Like Lara Trump has taken over the RNC and is just pilfering all of their money. None of the state parties. Which is, by the way, folks, one of the reasons why I think we're going. When I say I think we're going to kill them, I'm not being optimistic. I'm not being whatever. I try to give like realistic analysis based on who candidates are, what situations are. Like the state parties, the local committees from like the congressional to the Senate, they're not going to get any money from Trump's going to be either pocketing it or using it, probably more likely all of it on his legal defense. So they're on their own. And so these folks are all just going and defending him and just, oh my God, like I watch it, the cringe, the lack of self-respect, although speaking of that, I do have to say this one thing. Did you see at Rudy's 80th birthday party?
Yes.
He got served papers after an hour after
sang
mocking
him happy
them.
birthday.
And the guy who served their papers was there singing happy birthday before serving him the papers.
Yeah, it's so good.
That was so metal. That was like a Law and Order episode.
What a fucking arrow pointing at the guy. Happy birthday. Pew, pew, pew.
It's me.
Happy serve day to you.
With, Dick Wolf, I mean, that so has to be a Law and Order episode. I mean, come on, ripped from the headlines. I mean, it doesn't
Totally.
get any better than that.
I mean, yeah, it's going to work its way in, but it's so fucking ridiculous. It's one of those things. Okay, you know, one of my pet peeves is you can't make this stuff up. You absolutely can. You just wouldn't. You just go, this is fucking ridiculous. Like I edit this stuff out because it's just that stupid. But
you're a writer. I'm a writer. In my life, they always tell you, you write what you know. You look for examples in real life, and you make them more ridiculous. The problem here is, the examples I see in real life, I can't make any more ridiculous. Like, I guess if that guy had been like naked, dressed as a clown, singing to Giuliani, you know, like twiddling around his junk, and then served in papers, maybe that would be more ridiculous.
Oh, I wanted it to be Erica Raniak. Am I getting her last name right? The girl from Baywatch who was in Under Siege, who pops out of the cake topless in the thing.
That's
after
right.
she took the 2 Dramamine, and she wakes up, she's like, and starts singing. I'm like,
where am I?
Like, that would have been so good if it had been, you know, they popped out of a cake and it was like a buxom woman, because he'd have gone, hey, baby, and done his whole like weird, creepy, come on shit. And, you know, are those my titties, whatever, you know.
Right, that's right.
Nasty.
And you know what I love about the reference there?
Yeah.
Is the
Steven Seagal adjacent?
Well, Steven Seagal is the good guy, the guy that went and lived in Moscow and is pro-Putin.
Right.
Bad guy is Tommy Lee Jones, who was Al Gore's roommate at Harvard and has always stood up for like the most smart liberal policies.
Yeah.
Although Gary Busey, they got as a bad guy there too, and that worked out in real life. He's a Trumper, so they got 1 out of 3 right.
In his defense, he did have a motorcycle accident where they scooped up parts of the asphalt and put it back into his skull. Hey, I had a motorcycle accident. Listen here. It is one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, because now I can hear voices from the other side. Okay? So just understand that this is, because you got to understand, fear stands for false evidence that appears reactionary, something like that. Anyways, I have a secretary and she is dynamite. Let me tell you what.
I think they need to refilm some of the scenes from Point Break with him and Keanu Reeves, but with the current Gary Busey, just to see how he would react and say certain stuff.
I got no problems at all. Listen here. Let me tell you what. I had something happen. Listen, nothing goes wrong that shouldn't go right first. And if I've learned anything in all my years, it's, if it takes a chicken and a half, a day and a half to lay an egg and a half, how long does it take a monkey with a wooden leg to kick all the seeds out of a dill pickle? And the answer is Jesus Christ. Okay, so just write that down. Remember it.
I wish I had any retort to that could even compare to what you just did.
I spent the night in a haunted house in a haunted sanatorium with Gary Busey. So
did you really?
I really did. Waverly Hills in Louisville, Kentucky. VH1 did Celebrity Paranormal Project, and it was and he was on there. Like, I want to say her name was Katara. She's like a plus size model that was on The Biggest Loser
Katara
with him.
Is George Santos, by the way.
Right, that's entirely possible. It might be his. I'll find out.
I mean, that's his name. That was his. I mean, this may be a different Katara, but that's his name as a performer.
Or maybe he just stole it from her. He, like everything else.
He may have.
Yeah. So he.
True.
So it's so good because they were on that show together and fucking hated each other, and so they would go from 0 to abusive relationship in like 8 seconds. He's like,
wait,
hey,
who? Busey and who else?
Busey and Katara, the plus size model, whatever her name was. Yeah. They were on that show together, and then they were reunited on our paranormal show. Fucking A. And they would start, it would start this whole thing where she'd go like, Gary, just stay away from me. He's like, I just think it should be my turn first to go in there. Gary, it's my turn. Just step the fuck back. Well, I think it's right. Gary, get the fuck away from me. I've never even seen your face before, and never, like it just, they would just start yelling at each other. And he had a briefcase that he was like, if I need access to my briefcase at any given time, will I be allowed to do that? And like, okay, drugs.
You just
okay,
sat
sure.
there and laughed at all this shit is pretty much what you did?
It was so good. Okay, so I got picked.
It must have been.
I got picked to be the trance medium and do this like spirit drawing exercise about over this nurse that killed herself. When they had the tuberculosis epidemic, she was on the top ward with all the crazies, and then everybody below her they had turned into a tuberculosis center. And so they had to literally paint the windows in the front of the place because they were bringing so many dead bodies out.
This is like a 19th century kind of sanitary. I'm sad that I never, because I met my wife actually living and working in Louisville, Kentucky, working against Mitch McConnell, which sadly I apologize to all of you, we failed.
Right.
But I met my wife, so you take the good and you take the bad.
Yeah,
and,
it weighs itself out. Yeah.
So I knew Louisville relatively well, but I don't remember even hearing about this place. So
so Waverly Hills is the real deal. And anyway, so they had me sit under the place where this one nurse hung herself, and the idea was, did she hang herself or was she murdered? And because she was pregnant with a kid of one of the doctor there. Like one of the doctors there. And back then, if you were, you had a baby out of wedlock, it was ignominy and you would lose your status and they would kick you, you'd lose your job.
And there was no, like today, there also was no abortion. So,
right.
that was not an option either.
Yeah. So,
although actually Kentucky passed, I'm trying to remember, they did pass something that may have loosened
made that
the
better
laws. I had to look.
After that.
Yeah.
But so I had to sit there and draw, and I was just, they wrote on a piece of paper murder or suicide on the piece of paper, and then I couldn't see it. They just put my hand on it, and then I sat there and I scribbled, and I just let my hand scribble, and I drew a person like this, and the hand was longer on the murder side, and so everybody was like, "Oh, that was the thing." Anyways, it was a cool
You have to
part
send
of the
me
show.
a link because I have to watch the show now.
It was very good. And,
I want to see that episode.
But Gary was very angry because he talks to spirits that he wasn't going to be the liaison. Thank you, Carol Cobb, for the super chat. Gary was very mad. He's like, hey, since I've already got a relationship with the other side, I really think it should be me that should be doing it. And he was very upset that I got picked. I'm like, well, I can't do anything. It's just the producers are making me do it, and that's just how it works.
Part of his skull was actually already down in Hades, but yet he couldn't.
Yeah.
From the motorcycle accident.
Listen here, there's nothing wrong with me that a couple of clip nerves wouldn't straighten out. Listen here, I will tell you something. Come on, I'm dead serious with this.
I love your
Here,
Gary
Cliff.
Busey impression.
Come on, man, you can't go wrong. And
So I appreciate you being on last note before we bring on Texas Paul. Your thoughts on Cohen on the stand today? Because he's back up there as well.
I mean, I think he's been doing great so far, holding off on. They're doing everything they can to try to get him to just lose it, right? I mean, that's
right.
their game plan, and so far, so good. He hasn't. So again, I don't have a huge amount of faith in our judicial system at this point. I have more faith that we're going to crush him politically than I do that he's ever going to see a day in prison. I think in Texas Paul's state, I think we're gonna beat Trump. Take that as a prediction, and knock out Ted Cruz, by the way, which may be a good segue for you to talk to him. So hopefully we'll do the same here in Ohio, but they were a little closer in Texas last time.
Yeah, I think Ohio has and Texas both have like shocker potential because of Rovember and because of the reality of like. If every Democrat in this country just voted every election, we wouldn't be having these problems at all, because the red districts would be full on purple, leaning blue.
You're right.
And so they wouldn't be able to put up the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world because they couldn't stay elected. They couldn't run these people. They couldn't primary them because they wouldn't make it through the general, and they would know that. The more extreme they got, so you'd have at least. If in a Republican district, a Republican that's committed to democracy and actually gives a shit, they just have their own, ideas about how shit should work and all that stuff. So
here's the last thing I'll say on it, because I don't want to keep any more of his time. 3 factors. One, they actually did an analysis because of their idiotic COVID policies, and Democrats gained a net, I think it was like 17 to 20,000 votes here because they told their people not to get vaccinated. One.
Right.
Two, Rovember, you already said that. We already proved we won that election. Another poll that said, it's going to be close. We won by 13 points. And finally, Sherrod Brown is on the ticket running for Senate, and he has been one of the best turnout machines. Sherrod Brown is one of the most talented politicians I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So combine all of that, and that we lost here by 7.5 points, I think, last time. I think we have a great shot. There you go.
I
Off to
agree.
Texas,
I agree.
Paul. You're awesome. Thanks
Your
for
lips
having
to
me on.
God's ears. And thanks for being on, Cliff. I'd love to have you back, as often as we can. Really appreciate your take, and thanks so much.
Well, your assistant, or I should say Booker, has told me I'm on every Monday going forward. So I don't know. Hopefully you know that. And
I'm
that
for it.
I'm not shocking you.
Yes, I
But
was
you can
hoping.
kick me off anytime you want. You should know.
Yes. No, I was hoping. So that's. I'm glad it worked out. That was. I was trying to soft sell you while she was, hard selling you. Whatever. We're
You guys
double
did a
teaming
great
you.
job. I am as sold as Gary Busey. I'll stop with those jokes. Okay.
Hey,
I'll talk
I
to you
just
later,
want
man.
everybody follow him online. He is fucking fantastic. That Cliff Schecter, man, he is something else. Whew. I gotta tell you, he
All
is
right.
dynamite. All right, see you later, Cliff. Come on,
Yeah,
hang out
take
there,
care,
man.
guys.
There he goes. He's so good. Hey, I'm going to go hang out there for a second, folks. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to bring on Texas Paul in just a second. I'm going to go try to flick on my lights by throwing a switch. Wish me luck. And if something goes horribly wrong, blame the fucking cat. I will be right back. Hold on. Just talk to yourselves. We're gonna. What the hell? So what's happened is the internet is out here. I blame the haters of Jesus. They're around here somewhere. Something's funky, licious. What in the ever loving hell is going on here? Come on now. That is happening. Go to the local network. Excellent. They're all in there. Nobody can. Oh, get back in here, you son of a bitch. Yeah, something's down. We've got an internet freak out going on right here. It is just wrong. It's 100% wrong. There's something, I can't fix it. So we're just going to stay a little dizzy and dark. So you're going to have to deal with it. That's all we can do. So I'll just bring on Texas Paul, who is with us right now. Texas Paul, how are you, sir?
I am wonderful, my guy. I am wonderful.
It's good to talk to you again. You have been sorely missed, my friend. How are things? And we will, obviously, we'll get through the big stories of the day, maybe in reverse order from what we talked about with Cliff, and starting this morning with Cohen right now, where he's on cross, I guess. And what your general take on him on the stand?
Well, look, man, I think that Trump's lawyers are morons. I'll be honest with you. I don't know where he goes lawyer shopping, but Blanche has been horrible. He had a job to do when it came to Michael Cohen, and they were bragging about how he prepped for this for forever and a day, and he was just going to take down Michael Cohen. And the testimony has been straightforward and simple. I mean,
right?
It's really, they're literally trying to make Michael Cohen look like a bad guy when Michael Cohen is a confessed bad guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't really work with a jury.
Right. Well, the primary thing this morning, I think, was that, them saying he pled guilty to campaign finance violations, for the Stormy Daniels payment. And specifically to protect Donald Trump. That was the point, that he lied and went to jail to protect Donald Trump. And now they're saying, you're lying now. Well, if he's lying now, then he was telling the truth about whatever before, and he went to jail I guess he was an innocent man put in jail because he was found guilty, and he was forced in his mind, I guess, to plead guilty so he would get a lesser sentence. So he's an innocent man who was put in. And what did Trump do for his best buddy? Let him fucking swelter there. Right? That's the weird part. It's this odd fucking, I just don't get it. I really don't.
What was that movie with Forrest Whitaker where he worked in the White? He was a colonel that worked in the White House. He gave that line, and it was just the dead truth. I mean, sometimes you see something in a movie and it's true. And he made the statement, "Everyone believes a confession."
Right.
Nobody believes an accusation, but everyone believes a confession. And Michael Cohen has sat there on the stand and said, "Yeah, I did it. I did it. And nobody's doubting that. They have done absolutely nothing to undermine Michael Cohen's testimony. Stormy Daniels was outstanding on the stand. I mean, I cannot see Juan Merchan not actually giving Donald Trump jail time at the end of this. I really can't.
I will say that it is highly unlikely for financial crimes like this that somebody gets jail time on a first offense. Now, there are a bunch of, it's a bunch of like different charges overlapping in some cases, right? But I think it's important to look at it from the perspective of how should every defendant be treated the first time they're in court, depending on the stuff in front of him. And there's, obviously he's going to be a convicted felon in the next trial, which will affect how much jail time he gets. I think it's a slim chance he'll get jail time this time around. I do think, though, we're talking about like house arrest or some other shit or, some other aspects of that.
I don't expect 6 years in Riker. Don't get me wrong. I'm thinking, 40. He'll get 3 to 6 months max.
Right.
But after everything, after his lack of remorse, after everything, they're going to have to do something to wrap his knuckles. They are, to bring him back to reality. I don't think Judge Merchan it won't be out of spite. And like you say, they'll follow guidelines. I could see something like 1 day per conviction or 1 week per conviction. But he's not going to prison for 6 years. It's not going to happen.
Right.
But I do see him serving some jail time at the end of this. And I'll be honest with you, I've been following this. I've been waiting for the shoe to drop. I really have. Because this has been a pretty straightforward case, Hal. I mean, this is a financial crime. Those financial crimes, they open the books, they point to the line, they ask the people, were you responsible for this? And that's pretty much the whole case. The defense has been to try to spin it as this is vindictiveness or Michael Cohen is somehow, I really can't understand. I don't know. You're smarter than I am about stuff like this. Where are they trying to go with this with Michael Cohen? I don't get it.
I think they're going for the shotgun approach of unreasonable doubt. I think they want if they can't get one person on the jury to automatically go, that's the thing that makes it's a problem for me. I can't deal with the fact that she said this and he said that and whatever, that one thing. Well, the one thing Cohen said, the one thing that Stormy Daniels said, right? They can't wrap their head around that being enough. They don't feel safe that one detail will work. So I think what they're doing is they're trying to pepper everybody in the room with a potential for when you're sitting in the room and you're going, I have a problem with this. Well, I have a problem with this part. I have a problem with this part. And there may be no overlap in those where they both have the same problem with Cohen's testimony or the same problem with Stormy's, but they'll go, reasonable doubt will be this kind of soup of each of us has a tiny little issue with something, and that creates a greater disorganized sense of doubt. I think that's what they're going for. And that it's not uncommon as a legal strategy if your guy is guilty. As a matter of fact, you can tell that they know he's fucking guilty by this strategy. That's what you do.
Yeah. 100%. And I was actually talking to Mrs. Texas Paul about this, and her point of view, she had a good point that really kind of, I don't know. You tell me. Her point was, it seems like Todd Blanche thinks he has a holdout, thinks he has somebody that he's just going to give a political excuse to just go to the mat, go back in that jury room, and no matter what, I love Donald Trump, I'm not going to convict him. And you people are just after him. It seems like a political case they're trying to make, not a legal case. Because legally, I can't come up with any justification for what they're trying to say. They've got a guy sitting on the stand who has testified to the fact that he paid someone off to kill their story.
Right.
And your legal strategy is to make him seem dishonest?
Right.
His very actions were dishonest, and he's confessing to those actions. I mean, I don't see how this legally pans out in any way, shape, or form.
Right. I don't think he's counting on one person. I don't think he's that organized. I don't think he knows that they've got one that they're going to put on there. I really do think he's worried that they don't really have an answer to this, because it's pretty cut and dry. It's did he know or didn't he? Well, he's already admitted he knew. Even with his whole it says legal expense. It says legal expense. Like his shit outside the courtroom, which, technically he doesn't have to testify, which is why he's under a gag order and other people aren't. That they can go into, he said legal expense. It's, he said hide it basically under a legal expense. And it went down the chain that way. And so he's relying on the people who are third on the chain to go, they just wrote down what they were told. So it's their fault. But, I didn't know what was being done. Meanwhile, they know that literally these checks were brought to him in the fucking White House. And I got to say, if you're signing checks on the Resolute desk, you're more aware of them than you are even if you're just kind of slathering them on. And I think the jury's going to know this, right? They're going to, they're going to know specifically what this, they're going to have to deal with the fact that he was president at the time. Not that this happened in 2015, this happened in 2006, whatever. The payments occurred while he was in the White House, and he signed these checks, and they hit him specifically after the campaign to try and make sure nobody could go back and look at what he'd done, because it was a crime. He was aware of the crime. And I got to say, I don't think they can trust that people aren't going to go, all right, did he know it wasn't a legal expense? Paying, again, this is my sort of bagman analogy. So Texas Paul and I are engaged in somebody's blackmailing me, and Texas Paul's my buddy, and but he's not, we're not friendly enough where I'm going to get him on the hook. Right, there you go. Thank you, brother. He's already coming to help. But I'm like, I'll pay you $10K to drop off this $150K, right? And you're my lawyer. So nobody can ask you what we talked about in the conversation about where this money was getting dropped off. That's always going to be true, unless it's a criminal activity, unless, you're paying somebody to, hire somebody to murder somebody, which would be close to this. Okay, catch and kill. This is a story of a murder of a story. So I pay Texas Paul to pay this guy who's going to murder the story. This person called the story. And he carries the money and he puts it in a fucking stump outside of town. And I give him 10 grand for doing that. But I write down on my billing that I paid him $160,000. And now he's got to pay taxes on $160,000. So I write over and above the 10, which I don't give a fuck about him having to pay the taxes on it, apparently. The 150, I pay him, 45% above that, because that's the tax bracket it puts him in for this amount of money. And I pay him that specifically. And he goes and he drops the fucking money off, and I write down legal expense. So this whole thing is a legal expense. Well, it ain't, because even if you count the money that I paid you to carry the bag to the stump and the taxes that you'd have to pay for the service itself, the money that gets put in the stump, you didn't keep it. It's a lie. That money went somewhere else. You hid that, and somebody else, by the way, in the case of Stormy Daniels, claimed that on their taxes. She had to put that on her fucking taxes so they know the money showed up on this particular date. That's and they've shown that all along. And when they go back, I think when the prosecution goes back to the end of it, let me show you a timeline real quick. Here's where the money left Donald Trump. He signed this check and it went to, whatever. Michael Cohen paid her this amount of money on this particular date. And then Donald Trump paid Michael Cohen and the taxes to hide the fact that he gave this money, which you already know he gave to her, and he paid him back for this. And then he wrote down in his books legal expense. None of that is true. Not paying her, not paying him back for that, because it wasn't a legal expense to pay it off, to pay somebody off. I think he thinks legal expense means it's an expense and it's legal. I think he's that fucking stupid. It's legal.
I tell you,
NDAs are legal. Hush money's legal. It's legal. It's a legal expense. It's a legal, expense.
Yeah, and he's actually alluded to that to the press. He's talked about how, this is my lawyer, and he actually had Alina Habba come out and say, rail about this to what the hell is she even doing at this trial? Mm-hmm. I mean, she's not his lawyer. I don't understand why they're allowing her in. I don't get that, but that's a whole nother discussion. But she went up to the cameras and she said, well, Michael Cohen was his lawyer. Fixing problems is what lawyers do.
No,
of course he thought it. Yeah.
What the? Are you out of your fucking mind? Like that part drives me crazy. I'm like, that's what mob lawyers do. That's the point. And that's, by the way, why New York has to charge him for this shit. That's why. If they let it go, do you have any idea how hard it will be able to catch mobsters if you can let this kind of thing slide? Because this is how they do it. Just go watch fucking Midnight Run. The whole, where he's having this thing, pay him the money and we'll get it to him, and shut the fuck up, Sidney. I'm going to bury this phone in your fucking head, whatever. That whole conversation between, Farina and his attorney in the whole thing is exactly what we're talking about. That's Trump and Cohen. Yeah. That's what that whole no. We'll set up a thing and we'll pay for him. He's like, cash, check. I'm like, no. Like, he's trying to cover you motherfucker. It's on tape. It's on tape. And if they let it go, how do you charge mafia guys with hiding payments for drugs, human trafficking, murder, incorporated, all that shit through their attorney? You couldn't. Yep. Because they go, it was thrown out in Trump v. New York or whatever, New York State versus Trump. They didn't bring this. It becomes precedent for mobsters to get off. Yeah. And I tell you, talking about, just getting beyond guilt or innocence here and the legal machinations of it, just politically, the Democrats have been handed a pure gift in this, because we all know that he didn't get to the office. He didn't get behind the Resolute desk till 11, 12 o'clock. Mm-hmm. I mean, he just couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. We're seeing firsthand Donald Trump cannot put in an 8-hour day. He can't. Mm-hmm. He looks like hammered. Oh my hell! Shit! Right. By the end of the day, and it's just sitting in court. It's not even. We're not going through a lot of different topics. We're not dealing with the things a president has to deal with. This guy cannot get up in the morning, walk to an office, sit behind a desk, and just deal with one subject all day long. He can't do it. Right. He can't do it. He can't process the details. That's right. Yeah. Just. Yeah. Yep. And. Again, like this, he's got this, what was it? Every so often over the last couple of weeks, they have this 3-day attempt to redirect the narrative. The first one was, of course, him just trying to blather before court at at whatever at 40 Wall Street or wherever it was. Now it's, and then he went to the petting zoo, and then that was getting boring because he was saying the same shit over and over again. So he started reading stuff from bringing out lists of people who agree with him or have been, Turley and Dershowitz and blah blah. That got tired. So he's boring the fuck out of even his most ardent supporters. And then the next one has been this round of like dipshits coming to pay homage to him and sit in court for a day, avoiding work in Congress, avoiding work in the Senate, avoiding work, in their real jobs, whatever they may be. And even that did that move the needle? No, not at all. And all the people were like, we're here because he's got a gag order and we're going to say the things he can't say, right? And then they just repeated what he says. None of them came out with extra stuff. A little bit of like going after the judge's daughter a little bit because she's off limits, but they didn't go any further than he had said before he got hit, right? They're doing the same shit. Like, she's making money, blah, blah, blah. That's it. Dershowitz is in court with Trump today, just sitting there. Now that's the parade. He's going to have these guys come down, Turley, Dershowitz, Greg Jarrett, and a couple others, like come down and sit in court, and again, is that a contribution in kind for legal services to the campaign or to the man? Are they working pro bono as consultants? Because it matters. Legally, it matters, right? Not that anybody's going to push them on this, but because they're fucking gross and they've got bigger fish to fry. But, just nuts. Yeah,
I think that's one of the biggest things that we Democrats really need to really push this year is the $174,000 per year, plus travel, plus benefits, plus perks. Like, I did a show on the supper clubs that they have that with reciprocity. You got Dr. Feelgood, who's a member of the supper club here out in the middle of Dirtwater, Texas, which gives them reciprocity to the Capitol Hill Club here in DC. So, all the perks that these guys get. And what are they doing with it? Are they not passing legislation? They're not doing their job. They're out there hanging out in New York. And they're in New York not just to support Trump. This is a good time for them. They're out there partying. They're out there hitting up the supper clubs. They're out there hanging out with their buds. They're out there getting hookers. They're out there. This is not just, we Democrats have been handed a gift, a complete jewel in this situation. Not only is Trump unfit, he mentally and physically cannot get through an 8-hour day.
Right.
But everyone around him are just glaringly, openly making it obvious that they are not in the government to govern. They aren't. Right. They're having to put off votes. They're having to reschedule things in Congress so that these guys can go hang out, so that the Speaker of the House can go hang out outside a trial for a few minutes to get a soundbite. That's your Republican Party, folks. At $174,000 per year per person, plus travel, plus security, plus all of their expenses, their food, their drinks, everything else. We're fitting the bill for all of it. We're fitting the bill for all of it.
Yep. Yeah. I have to say, after his whole crowd debacle, which we now know was, less than 10,000 people, maxed out at 12, averaged about 8 during the greater part of the days because people were walking in and going, bullshit, and walking out because it was free, essentially. You could get 2 tickets to go into the front part, and then you'd walk back out, right? But most people just walked in and kind of stood in the area behind the media tent, and therefore that was free. Like, you didn't need a ticket necessarily to go all the way into that place. So they'd walk in and just kind of stand for a bit and split.
So what you're trying to tell me is, that Maury's Water Park and Pier didn't they couldn't handle 100,000 people like, say, AT&T Stadium? I mean, Maury's Water Park and Pier, where this actually occurred. It's just killing me that the press keeps saying it was on the beach at the Jersey Shore. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was at Maury's Water Park and Pier. That is where Trump held his event. And now we've got the fire marshal coming out and saying, well, yeah, that 80,000 figure that we announced as the government
Right.
was wrong. That was every restaurant and every facility in town, everywhere had
And
a capacity of
vacation
80,000.
properties, right? And all the like people who visit the fucking Jersey Shore part of the time, right? So they literally, the mayor of that area was saying he was counting his audience, anybody who could hear his speech through their fucking windows across the water. Like that, just the volume that made you audience. Yeah. It's like, I don't know, why not the population of the whole fucking state at this point?
Yeah. I love the fact that they were stupid enough to share a picture of Rio. Like, we don't know what Rio looks like.
Right.
Like, we don't know what Rio de Janeiro looks like. You know, we've never seen those pictures before.
Right. Well, and also, like, the fact that it was a Rod Stewart free show, like, at that time, the biggest free outdoor concert that anybody had ever
God
had.
bless Rod Stewart, man.
Yeah, for pulling him.
That
man.
dude's like, what, 85? And he pulled a crowd like that? Jeez.
Yeah. And, you know, again, never, by the way, I have never, and I don't think you probably have either, I have never heard Rod Stewart, you know, claim from the size of that crowd that he was drawing audiences bigger than paid crowds of that size. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
There were
exactly.
Like at this point, Donald Trump's going to start saying he had bigger people, you know, a bigger audience than than the Metallica like Enter Sandman Russia concert, which had like 1.2 million. That sea of people. If you've never seen anything, you want to watch something that'll give you claustrophobia about crowd size. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I mean, just good Lord. But that's the other thing is that, you know, and I brought this up with Cliff. I'm like, this asshole wants credit for free crowds. All you got to do is email them. They'll give you 2 fucking tickets. That you don't get to even enter the fucking realm of people like Springsteen and others, where they're pulling 35,000 people, and the tickets in some cases, like the shit tickets, are $125. The bad way in the back tickets. Much less the $1,000 plus you're paying to be down front buying packets of 4 for all your fucking buddies because it's your one goal in life to see him take out a small car loan to go see somebody front row for the final tour or what might be the final tour. By the way, go see your favorite live artists all the time because nobody knows when their farewell tour is. Ask Chris Cornell. I'm just saying, go see fucking people that you love when they're live and they come to your town. Don't go, I'll catch them next time. That's not an option.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Go. Yeah.
I tell you what I love is people from New Jersey, man. Because I had a blast with the fact that it was Maury's Water Park and Pier. I just did. I mean, I just loved that. Maury's. He was at Maury's talking about he pulled a crowd of 100,000 at Maury's Water Park. Okay.
Yes.
I caught so much hell from people from New Jersey. They're like, first of all, the water park itself has its own name. I'm like, well, first of all, Maury says it's Maury's Water Park and Pier. I'm going with what Maury says. And second of all, they were just pissed off. It's like, it's a great place. I'm like, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's an amazing water park. Yeah. But it's still a water park.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have a 100,000 capacity venue for concerts or anything else. Period. Yeah. End of story. But they were pissed off, brother, that I was actually having a good time with the fact that it was at Maury's.
Right. Well, that, and again, increasingly that's like part and parcel to the issue that Trump has had with all of the venues, because he's playing like local private airports and shit because he's not allowed to do the big venues anymore because he stiffed them on security and stiffed them on the cost of the place because he thinks if he's giving a free event, it should be free for him.
For him, yeah. Yeah.
What the ever-loving fuck? And
No
and
kidding.
people are in the chat are saying, what about the people who left? Exactly. Like, people were walking out of that shit on the regular, because half of them weren't there to actually go. It was more like a prurient, let's go see Trump's down here. That's fucking hilarious. Let's go check him out. And then he was just blathering about his fucking case, and they're like, fuck it. Let's go get an elephant ear.
I was talking to Christopher Titus about this the other day, man. And you understand comedy. You
Yes.
understand comedy.
It is true.
The final scene of The Silence of the Lambs, the telephone call, where he says, I'm having a friend for dinner, Clarice. I have to go. I'm having a friend for dinner, Clarice, was not comedy. There was nothing funny about that scene. It was a very, oh, jeez moment, because that guy is about to die in a very horrible way. And Donald Trump, being the sociopath he is, was trying to sell to this crowd that was, I'm having a friend for dinner, Clarice.
Right.
I'm saying, dude, I mean, everybody there was like, if you look at the crowd during the speech, that's what I like to do. I like to people watch. If you look at the crowd during the speech, even the people in the MAGA hats and all the other are like, are you getting this? Are you?
Yeah.
Are
Does
we
he
supposed
really
to be laughing?
Yeah. Is this? Does this motherfucker actually think that's how this goes? Mm-hmm. Right? Because I gotta say, this is it's habitual. Like, he somehow thinks that, like, at one point he says that poor doctor about Chilton, the guy whatever, who's obviously a sexist pig and whatever, but doesn't necessarily deserve to be cooked and eaten. And I have my issues with people who like Hannibal Lecter and play around with that bullshit. Like Hannibal fans, I've been at war with them on the internet for a long time because I'm sorry, but my mom's a nurse. And I checked out on Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs when the nurse bent over to check his vitals and he bit off half of her face. They managed to save one of her eyes, and he broke her jaw, and his heart rate never got above 58 as he swallowed her tongue. I'm like, yeah, my mom used to work in a mental institution, and I was
funny,
like,
is it?
No, it isn't at all. Fuck you. No. And that's what makes it. Again, it wasn't that he kills the fucking violinist because he's classless or so. He's like, and again, an elitist prick. But he literally just, a nurse is trying to save his life because he faked a heart attack, and he swallowed her tongue. He bit her face and scarred her forever, and she barely it's not cool. It's not funny. It's not redeemable. He never seeks to redeem himself. It's fucking gross. And anybody who's like, he's kind of my hero because some people have it covered. He's like, fuck you. The same thing with Chilton. Like, he should lose his job, but he should lose his, he should have to move on. But that's very different than somebody fucking chewed to pieces. And so everybody's going, hell, it's a movie. Yeah, I know, but it's a morality play. So you can check yourself against the morality of the people involved. How far would you go?
Right.
All cop shows
and
are
the guy that wants.
Yeah, it's all fiction, but it's meant to say something about you and your parallel to the characters. Right.
And it does say something about you, Hal. It does. When you cannot understand. Right. When you don't have the emotional capacity, when you are so broken like Trump is, you don't have the emotional capacity to understand that this was not funny. This was not a funny scene in a movie. This was a movie that was meant to leave you walking out of the theater going, I mean,
it's fucking terrifying.
And you can't process that, and you think that it's funny. I mean, he was laughing and giggling and this, like Hannibal Lecter said. I mean, he literally says that.
Well, I'll tell you, and I have a theory about why he brings both of them up. Why he brings up Hannibal Lecter and Al Capone. Because he brings both of them. I think he's only seen 2 fucking movies all the way through. And he's seen a piece of Home Alone, which was his scene, and he doesn't give a shit about Home Alone 2, and he doesn't give a shit about anything else. But the only movies he ever watched all the way through, either with family or just because he actually was captivated by it, was The Untouchables, which he was probably in a theater having to watch it as part. He went to one of the premieres in New York or something like that, and Silence of the Lambs. Right? He saw both of those, and those 2 guys scared the fuck out of him. Those 2 men actually frightened him. and that's why he can't get them out of his head. That's why they're like primarily, Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, and so on. Which also is the name Ty Cobb is mentioned, and Trump later hires an attorney named Ty Cobb. Right?
Yeah.
Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, and so on. And he bashes that dude's head in. And Trump, he wasn't following the fucking script. That guy fucked up. It wasn't that he didn't like his face, right? It wasn't that, he didn't like his, his, qualities as a human being. It was specifically, sorry, refresh everybody. We popped offline for a second. We're back though. That, he wasn't even paying enough attention to know why the guy got killed.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't give a fuck. He really didn't. It's, you know what I mean? It's so fucking weird. And so
and this really kind of hits home for me, man. A little inside baseball. My great grandfather was a Norwegian, big Norwegian dude that was muscle for Al Capone. He lived up in Chicago. He was actually muscle for Al Capone. My grandmother ended up shooting a guy because Dino O'Banion sent someone over to his house to remove him from the playing field. And they got a warning that this was about to happen. And my great-grandfather wasn't home. And my grandmother ended up freaking shooting a guy in a stairwell that was coming to to kill her father, my great-grandfather. And to save her from retribution, because that actually happened. I mean, this isn't a joke, folks. It's not made up. It's not Fantasyland. It's not movies. These people actually took retribution on people. My grandmother ended up was moved away from her family at 16 years old from Chicago, Illinois to Wisconsin, where she met my grandfather. And that's how I ended up being here. And yeah, she was badass, dude. She would, my grandmother would throw hands.
I guess so.
She was, big woman too. That's where I get my looks from.
Sure. She's a whole lot of woman.
Oh yeah. My dad called her the Dutchman.
Right. She was a frontier lady.
Yeah, she was bad, man. She was badass. She really was. My grandfather went through an alcoholic phase where he got abusive, and my grandmother chased him up the street to a neighbor's house, beating the living dog shit out of him.
Wow.
And he was begging to get in the house, and the neighbors were like, "Go home, go home." I mean, that really happened. But no, man, I hear these stories.
Here, man. She's gonna do us in.
Yeah. But yeah, I hear people tell stories like you're talking about, that saw a movie once, and it's like, no, it's not funny. It's not entertaining.
And it's not something. It's okay. It's one thing if you're just sitting around a bunch of friends watching a movie and kind of joking about it in the moment or whatever. But if you're running to be the president of the United States of America, letting someone on your staff put out a picture of you as Thanos snapping your fingers is not a joke. It speaks to a level of blind cruelty and disregard for human life. It's one thing if you're just like, well, as a Bible fan, sometimes you get caught in traffic and you wish half the population was gone. Okay, that's childish and grotesque, but I see go ahead and defend it. Knock yourself out. Meanwhile, though, in this particular, if you've got access to Predator drones and nuclear warheads, that joke shouldn't even cross your fucking mind.
Yeah, I mean, Hal, we joke about it. We talk about, oh, he's broken. He's, all this other stuff. Hal, he asked Mark Milley to shoot people.
Yes.
And when Mark Milley said no, he said, well, shoot him in the legs.
Right.
And then put that in the context of the 2025 project, where they're talking about decimating any resistance that he saw in the first term, where he had Mark Milley say, no, Mr. President, we're not going to shoot Americans for protesting. Put that in context. I mean, he is a freaking sociopath who has figured out that he needs to eliminate all resistance. So the next time he says, go shoot people, and today he's talking about, I'm going to make Ken Paxton my attorney general.
Right.
Evil Christ. Popeye. He's going to make evil Popeye his attorney general, a guy that goes after hospitals over people getting gender care. I mean,
yeah. And by the way, who looks specifically looks the other way when people go down to the Texas border and fire shots across the border into Mexico. Yeah. Doesn't prosecute them. Knows full well there are dudes down there setting up sniper rifles and firing at people. And they're like, that guy looks like a cartel guy. Who? The guy filling his tank with gasoline. Well, see if you can get him from here. Like, that shit is happening on the border. We've seen, like, you know, maggots boasting about they go on these hunting trips, and Paxton is not going to process any of these motherfuckers. And there's one thing to like look the other way, and then you get Trump in office, and you don't think this motherfucker's going to legalize some of that stuff and say we need defenders at the border.
Yeah.
Fuck
it's going to be awful.
That.
Yeah. It's one thing. I know how we sit. We make light about it. We joke about it. We laugh. But it's really not funny. You know, I had a very serious moment on my show yesterday where we were, you know, I'm like, I've got a big international audience, man. I really do.
Right.
I'm very proud of that. I've got a lot of people from Europe, a lot of people from Africa, Australia. I've got a big international audience, and I had to tell them, I had to look right in the camera and say, look, you don't understand what's at stake in this election. We are a war tribe. The things that you think our military can do, you have no idea what they can actually do. I mean, folks, I'm not bullshitting when I tell you, if we went to war with Russia, we would end Russia effectively in a month.
Right.
In a month.
I would say at this point, after they're fighting in Ukraine, it would be weeks. It wouldn't even be a whole month. And the other thing too is like they would try to drag China and Iran into this shit and make a bunch of noise that would last 3 days, 3 fucking days.
And you've got this sociopath, and you're talking about giving the guy power. And the guy that told Netanyahu, finish this. He tells them, kill them all. You know, I mean. You can't do this, folks. You cannot do this. I don't care what's going on in your life. You have to show up. You have to vote. This is literally the world will burn. I mean, I don't know how to put it any blunter.
Yeah. Well, because, and again, it's I think it's crucial to how we think about, you know, Trump the man, is that on the one hand, I agree he's a sociopath, but I also believe that he is absolutely weak and fearful and cowardly. And unlike the Vladimir Putins and the Xi Jinpings, who are killers, let's not beat around the bush. They're fucking monsters and have no compunction about murdering people. Donald Trump is squeamish and weak. And the problem with that is he'll want this stuff done, but he'll want the person he doesn't have to say it to. So he will put people in charge like fucking, you know, I don't know, like
Kash Patel.
Yeah, like Kash Patel or you know, any of the guys that he put in, you know, Whitaker and all the people that he was putting in as temps right at the end. He's going to put Paxton. He's going to put in absolute psychopaths who he can give a single directive to, which is clean it up. Like he was saying to Netanyahu, clear the cancer out of Gaza. You gotta finish the problem, right? That's what he said. That's how he's going to talk to these people. And then he's just going to like wind them up like murder toys and send them off. So he doesn't have to get his hands dirty. And it'll be even worse. There's a certain control to, you know, the fact that, you know, Putin's a hedonist and does not want to die for the Russian bloodline. If he did, we'd be in way bigger trouble. if Xi Jinping was a Han radicalist who believed in the purity of the Han bloodline, we'd be in a lot more trouble. If he was a true communist that believed, through and through that the world would either, conform or die like the fucking Borg, we'd be in a lot more trouble. But these guys are hedonistic, elites of their own making, right? So. Yeah. Specifically, would you kindly fetch me Dave's ear? Yeah. He wants to, he's too squeamish for that shit. Putin and those guys would specifically go, kill that guy and make it hurt. Trump won't even do that. Trump will go, that guy's a problem. We gotta deal with that. And they'll go, I got it. And then they'll run off and make it as ugly as possible. And then they'll come back and tell him the cute version of what they did to that person horribly. The ambassador to Ukraine would have been murdered horribly or fallen out of a window or some shit. Yeah.
Right. What they did with kids down at the board. Yeah, look.
Right.
You think that guy, that was Miller on a leash.
Yes.
That was Miller with resistance from the 2025 project is designed to eliminate all of that resistance.
Yes.
It's literally, they tell you, read it yourself. They tell you Trump faced resistance from the deep state. Mm-hmm. And we're going to eliminate all of that resistance. That's the entire point of the 2020. Yeah.
That's what he's talking about. Exactly. That's the law. Like the deep state is, they have to abide by these things. And by the way, when they talk about deep state, they mean bureaucrats. And what do bureaucrats do? They're the ones who go, actually, that would be illegal according to the law. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about all the people in government who work there we don't elect everybody who works in the government. It's like, it's fucking ridiculous. It's like if you had investors in a company pick, like you can vote on the board, you can vote on the CEO, but if you could vote on every employee, good fucking Lord, it would be a waste of time. You'd never get around to actually making a product or doing anything, right? And the same thing is true. We got to hire people in the government and the like. And so it's the nonpartisan government workforce, and they just, and the biggest thing that he had a problem with was they go, well, that's illegal. I mean, you have to get a law changed. That was a violation, to him. How dare you?
Like Alexander Vindman telling President Trump, that's a crime. What you just did is a crime. You can't do that. You have to fix that. I mean, Alexander Vindman did not go rogue the second Trump started to blackmail the Ukrainians. He didn't. I mean, he did his job. He said, that's a crime. You can't do that, Mr. President. You can't say that. The law says that they get these weapons. Congress allocated them. It's been signed. It's the law. You don't get to play with this. It's a crime. That's what they're eliminating. That's what the 2025 project, if you read what they tell you themselves, they have people in place. The Federalist Society is doing the vetting. They're putting people in place so that on January 21st, the United States government will decimate any and all resistance to anything that they want to do.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
Folks, you have to vote. You have to vote. This is it. This is really it. I mean, there is no next election. They're telling you to your face, not me. Don't believe Texas Paul. Don't believe. Go read the 2025 project. They're telling you themselves.
They want a Russia-style election that, where they have absolute control over whether the votes make it to the Capitol. That's what they tried to do on Jan 6 as a last-minute slapdash bullshit way of doing it. But, this time around, and the people around Trump, he hasn't learned a fucking thing, and he's stupid. He's on a hard fail, and they know it. And this is like their last shot at trying this shit. It's one of the reasons why Bill Barr turned on him. It wasn't because Bill Barr disagrees with what he's trying to accomplish. It's just that he thought he was doing it in too ham-handed a way, and they never get away with it. People are catching on. You're so fucking stupid and loudmouth about it that we're going to get busted, dude. That was Barr's problem with him. And so they still will try this, but this is their last chance to do it overtly in one fell swoop. Then, if Trump fails, they have to go back to this death by 1,000 cuts business, and they know they'll never get there because we won't let it happen.
Well, Hal, show me in the polling. Everybody keeps talking about, oh, the Trump is leading the polling. I'm like, okay, well, show me in that poll where
Right.
Nikki Haley takes 15 to 20% of the vote.
Right.
Show me in the poll. Show me in your poll that says Trump's leading, where it says Nikki Haley takes 15 to 20%, because that's reality.
Right.
You have Republicans that are counted on. It's not like these people that are, we've got on our side that everybody's freaking out. Oh my God, these people aren't going to go vote because of Gaza. I'm like, those people were never going to vote. We never counted those votes. Those are the same people that blackmail us every single election. If you don't give me everything I want, I'm not going to vote. And they don't vote. They've never voted for us. They're never going to. That 15 to 20% that Nikki Haley was peeling off from Republicans, absolutely they were counting on those votes. Those
Right.
were Republican voters that were going to show up that are saying, no, we're not doing this. We see where this is going. We see what Trump is. No, we're not doing it. And folks, that gives me hope. If you will
Right.
get your ass up, pardon my language, but if you will get your ass up and just show the hell up and vote, we have Republicans on the other side that are A, going to not show up, or
Yep.
B, are going to show up and vote for Joe Biden. And we can
Yes.
end this.
Yeah.
We can end this insanity because, guys like Bernie Marcus and Bar Said and all these people that are dumping billions of dollars into these movements, they don't like being losers.
No.
That's
and
the
attached to
kryptonite.
losers. Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's
Also,
the kryptonite.
Barbara in the chat saying, how can Nikki jump back in?